What's up, everybody? This is Jay, and this is the season 2, episode 7 recap for The Shy Blind Eye. Let's get into it. Now, when the episode start off, we see a dude shot right in the temple of the head, and everybody is, a lot of commotion going on. We see the cops checking, and then this other cop saying, check again. You got to find something, check again. And so he's telling them he didn't find anything, and he's still looking. Meanwhile, the other cop we see is Detective Cruz, and it's 2013 in Kansas City. And so he goes and he sits next to his partner, and he's saying, so what did you see? He said, there's nothing in there. He said, no, man, I checked. I know what I saw. I saw a gun, man. Check again. Meanwhile, the lieutenant walks up on the scene, and so he goes and talks to Cruz, and then Cruz is telling him he didn't find anything. And he said, all right, you go back to the station and babysit him. And then we flash back to now with Detective Cruz looking at another victim shot in the head. And so another officer is talking to him and asking him what's going on, and is he all right? Because he was just staring at the victim. And he said, yeah, I'm all right. And so then he starts getting the rundown of who she was and what happened. Then he checks the trunk, and lo and behold, he finds all of those brochures for the Realty place, and he said, put these in the evidence because the old lady was beat recently. Meanwhile, we see Kev, and he got Jerrica on the truck blindfolded, and then he tell her to open up for this big surprise, and it's a little bitty stove, and she like, what is this? He like, this is a stove, and he talking about how fancy it is. He like, man, Diddy probably got one of these in his house. And she said, oh, is that right? He like, yeah, I mean, this is really expensive stove. I mean, what's up? And she like, okay, it's a stove, Diddy stove anyway. And he's saying, oh, why is it like that? And she says, well, look, I mean, it's a stove. I'm not that excited about it, but it's all right. I'm glad you happy. My parents are coming for dinner, and when they hear it, don't mention Otis Perry thing, how you got it. Just mention that, the stove, Diddy's stove, and how great it is. He like, all right, because he had to tell her that he got it from money from Otis Perry. Meanwhile, she gave him a couple kisses, and she off along her way. Now we see back at Ronnie's grandma's that Jada sees all these baby stuff, and she say, well, that's Ronnie for his grandbaby. He out there working on that car all day. I don't care if he come back. And then she Jada gives her the controller. She say, let me watch my judges. And she say, well, did you talk to Ronnie about it? She said, girl, don't you see the judges is talking? I ain't got time for that. And so meanwhile, we see on the taco truck, Brandon, he talking with Emmett about what happened, and Emmett is laughing, saying, man, you don't show no woman nothing expensive unless it's for her. And he's saying, yeah, but this was expensive stove. He like, oh yeah, right, like she want to see a stove. And so he laughing. He like, man, I don't know. He said, man, what she probably wanted you to do is get her a ring. Like me, I'm about to get this for my for Keisha. And then he showed these shoes, these track shoes, and he's saying, so let me get this straight. You gonna buy her some shoes because she with somebody else and ain't returning your call. He like, well, nah, we still got the the fuck buddy code, and we can still sleep with each other. He like, man, that don't make no sense. Sound like you jealous. And it had Emmett thinking real hard. Meanwhile, we see Detective Toussaint getting chewed out by Detective Jerrica, and she telling her, look, I'm not necessarily looking in the mirror, but I'm not looking in the mirror. And what you did on that raid, that was a little out of place, and we need you to rein it in. We got a lot of stuff going on ever since this Ferguson situation, and we don't need that here. So you need to straighten it up. And she's saying, okay, and then they going back and forth. Meanwhile, we see Ronnie, and he's still fixing on that hoopty. He got it rolling, tailpipe dragging, and he's still working on under the hood. And Jada come out talking to him. She say, I didn't know you was handy. He like, oh yeah, I always been good with my hands. She say, oh, okay, so what's going on with you and grandma? And she's saying, oh man, she told me don't talk about it. And he said, well, did you ask her why she never talked to the man about it? What's going on? Why he never talked to you? He said, she can't answer for him. She can't answer for me. And so he said, so how about I thank you for helping out and take you to dinner? She said, why don't you just put up my bookshelf instead? He said, all right, that's fine. Meanwhile, we see Detective Toussaint, and she's working talking with Detective Cruz, and he asked her about the white girl she was asking about and showed the little brochures. And so then she started trying to put two and two together. She was wondering whether or not this may be connected. And so she's saying, so she was shot, huh? And they had all these brochures. And he said, yeah. So what do you know about Family C Realty when you checked into it? And she said, well, I checked into it and it seemed like everything was legit when I checked into it. So I'm not sure. Maybe we look into it a little more. And so then he have a flashback and he's remembering when he was talking to his partner, and his partner was all shook up and everything. And he was saying, you know, I could have swore he had a gun. You know, he had a gun. I would do the same. I'll back you up. You know, I thought that he had a gun. He could have killed both of us. He's saying, man, it was no gun, man. He like, man, you know, these black dudes, man, they always either have weed or guns. It's one or the other. He said, don't do that. He said, man, I do what I need to do, man. For me and my family, we brothers. Meanwhile, we see Jerrica working with a drunk friend and she asking for some more. And Jerrica like, nah. And she like, you know, I don't get drunk when I'm working. And then she like, girl, please, except for that time, right? And she like, well, I mean, that don't really count. And she says, look, you can have another, but don't be calling my man no thug. She like, I'm sorry. And she say, look at this. And so then they looking at the letters of people that's getting kicked out and they feeling sad. And she say, I wish I could do more. She like, yeah, I know, right? I'm surprised that she won't have no more low income in her home. So she said, yeah, I know. Let's have another drink. Meanwhile, we see Emmett and he trying to find Keisha, so he bumps in the cab. He like, what's up? He like, man, what you doing here? He like, I can't see my girl, little brother. What's going on? He like, oh, nothing much, man. Nice ride. He like, what, you clowning my trucks? He said, no, man. I'm talking about the Beamer. He like, the Beamer? He says, Kev says, yeah, the Beamer, that was tight with the black. I wouldn't necessarily get the matte, but it was cool. He like, oh, yeah, what color? He like, oh, man, the color, you know. You don't remember the color? He like, no, but it changed a little at night, you know what I'm saying? So I was wondering what you thought it was. He said, no, it was black. You know, that's what it looked like to me. He like, oh, okay. Hey, look, man, black Beamer. Look, let me tell you, man, for real, that ain't my car, man. I'm trying to find out what's up with her. She like, I don't know. She said it was you. She been missing curfew and everything. He like, for real? She don't miss curfew for me? He like, hey, Kev said, don't tell her I told you. He said, rest easy. I got you, bro. Meanwhile, we see Detective Toussaint, and she's speaking with Cruz, and then the Sarge come over, and she's talking to him, Detective Scary Girl, and so then she says that they got a new guy on the case, and she pulling Detective Cruz off the case, and so he's looking like, what in the world? They was just starting to get some stuff together on that case, and now he going to talk to the detective to ask what's going on, why she pulling him, and she said, look, they decided to pull you off active duty for a while and put you behind a desk for a couple weeks because of what happened with that Ronnie statement. She says, look, I don't know whatever went on with y'all, but you did something you wasn't supposed to. You need to make sure that don't happen again. And so that's all on his mind. Meanwhile, he's starting to think back when he was in Kansas City and how he was looking at the video footage of the crying family members of the person his partner shot. And then one of the officers bring him this report of what his partner said. He reads it over and then he's like blown away about what he reads. Meanwhile, we flash back to now. We see the dinner going on with Jerrica and her family and Brandon, and the mom is complimenting on the food, and he said, yeah, well, Jerrica told me you like salmon, so I tried to hook it up. And then the father complimented him, hey, you better listen to Jerrica. She one of the top in business, and you know, there's her mama, you know, you don't want to cross her. And he said, I could tell you a story about fish. He said, oh, okay, I guess that and the mean black woman, he said, I guess that the fish lost. And so they start laughing for a second, and then he was getting ready to start talking about business, but Jerrica gave him the eye, not to mention Otis Perry. And so while they were talking, then Jerrica, they said, speaking of business, we got some good news for you. We're going to step back some from the office, and we're going to start handing over more of the control over to you and let you run things. And so she was all surprised, blown away, happy. And so they were real appreciative of what she had going on, and she said the first thing she want to do is rent to more low income. And daddy like, we already got it to 11%. She said, well, we should do more. And then Brandon like, yeah, they like, well, we can't kick the people out. He like, nah, you can't do that. Then everybody looked at him like, shut your ass up. So he got up real quick, started getting the kitchen together while they discussed business. And so she was saying about how she wants to do more, and the parents were basically looking at each other like, man, she don't get it. And so they said, look, since we having a dinner, let's enjoy that. She got up and left. She was upset. Meanwhile, we see Ronnie and Jada, and they having a little sip, a little champagne, and he talking about his granddaughter and how happy he is about it and everything. She was happy that she's starting to see a new side of Ronnie, and she told him she was glad he getting out the house more, and that the grandma, you know, everything that may be out of place or something, it just, you know, throws her off because ever since the attack. And he said, no, she was like that before the attack. She always complained. And he said, well, did you ever try to talk to her and see why she didn't talk to you about, you know, your father? And he said, well, she ain't really the talk about your feelings type. And then Jada put her hand on his knee and was telling him, you know, hey, it's okay. And then next thing you know, that one thing led to another, and he went on in for a kiss. And then he kind of felt a little weird, was like, all right, I think I'm gonna go. Meanwhile, we see Brandon belly bumping the ATM, and he getting his money out. And then as he's walking to the truck, he sit there and he start talking with Emmett, and then he looks down at his receipt, and then he sees out of nowhere he got over $50,000 on his receipt and his balance. So he like blown away. And then Emmett like, man, what the world, 50 G's? Man, you know what we could do with this? He like, man, this ain't my money. And so he gets the phone call, and he's calling Mr. Perry to tell him to give him the money back. And right when he talked, Emmett take the phone and hang up. And he like, what are you doing? He said, what are you doing, man? This is a great gift. You don't look that in the, you know, throw that away. And he like, man, look, this money ain't mine. And the person who money it is, if they come looking for it, then that ain't type person you could just blow off. And he like, well, I don't know. This happened to me before. I got 2 checks. I ended up buying a pair of Jordans off of that. He said, look, we ain't buying nothing without this being straight. I see Detective Scary Curl gave you an ass whooping too. I got one too. He said, oh yeah? She said, yeah, the stash house raid got me in trouble. It's all good. And she say, he said, you want to confess? I heard confession's good for the soul. And then Detective Toussaint say, I think you might want to stay clear of confessions. And so he laughed. And then she said, so what's going on? He said, well, I've been having somebody tell that food truck, and I've been seeing a lot of cash exchange hands with Reg in the food truck. And then Detective Cruz say, well, I mean, that's normally how you pay for stuff, with cash. And she said, yeah, but the 63rd Street mob don't pay anybody, and they for some reason paying Brandon. And he said, well, I mean, just because you in the same hood, you know some of the same people. She said, there go that bleeding heart for black men. When does it stop? Do everybody get a pass? And then he flashed back to when he was in Kansas City, and he was going to confront his partner, and then he was with a couple other cops. So he said, hey, let me talk to you in private. And so he tells his other partners, let me go talk to my partner. And so he goes in a room, he throws the papers at him. He say, what is this? What are you talking about? What threatening gestures? What did he do? What do you mean your life was threatened? What are you talking about? And he said, look, it's out of my hands now, bro. Okay, it's all out of my hands now. I gave him the report. He said, what do you mean? You want me to sign off on this? He said, yeah, you're my partner. You're supposed to back me up. He said, if it was me, I would no doubt do it for you. Now, you going to sign the paper or what? And so it put him in a bad situation. Meanwhile, we see Brandon giving Kev a haircut, and he's saying to Kev, hey, man, you can't come by so much, man. I got a full-time job, man. I'm going to have to start charging you. He like, man, for real? He said, nah, man, you good, man, but not so much. And he said, so what's going on? He said, man, what's up with you and your girlfriend? He said, who, Maisha? He said, man, she cool, man, but she, you know, she kind of mean. And he said, oh, what? That's what's up? He said, yeah, man, it's funny, though. But he said, man, don't let your friends pick your girl. You be with a stripper. And come by once a week, and we good. Meanwhile, we see Jerrica, and she's meeting with one of the ladies that needed a home. And so she was saying, oh, this is real nice. I ain't never been done like this on the south side. And she said, oh, okay, I hope it wasn't out your way. She said, no, I was just happy to get your call. So what do you need? Here's my stuff. And she said, oh no, you're fine. All your paperwork and everything is fine. I just wanted to meet with you to give you this references. As of now, we don't have anything, but I do know some people here, and they should be able to get you some stuff. And she say, what? You called me here and you don't have nothing? You could have did this over the phone. I called off of work to come here to meet you today. Took 2 trains, buses, and all of this just for you to tell me no to my face. I mean, that's messed up. I could have did this way. Sorry. And she walked out on him. Meanwhile, we see Brandon, and he's in the food truck, and then he get a bang on the door. He come out, and next thing you know, it's one of Doodah men with the keys to a new food truck. So he looking like, what? He says, yeah, man, this is courtesy of Doodah, your second food truck, man. And then next thing you know, we see they under surveillance by Detective Toussaint. She taking pictures of everything. The guys is following her now. Looking at Brandon, belly on swole, trying to get in the food truck. And so now she's starting to put some more pieces of the puzzle together. Meanwhile, we see Brandon coming home, and he got a lot on his mind now that he got more information about Otis Perry and the food truck. He want to talk to Jerrica and tell her, and then she break down crying. So he like, dang, what's wrong? And then she crying about feeling bad about not being able to help the people and stuff. And so he want to be Captain Save him. He got that little 50 G's in the bank, and so he belly on up to her and tell her, hey, you know what, just quit, don't worry about it, I got you. And she says, what? I can't quit. That's a lot of money, commission and everything. I'd be letting down. I can't do that. He say, look, I got you. You always have me. I'm going to have you. It's my turn. I'll take care of you. You go ahead, find what you want to do. I got you. And so he feeling all good because of that money in the bank. And he feeling like he can hold the fort down. And then she goes off, and now he's realizing what he's got himself into. While the detectives is putting together the case, and so Detective Toussaint say, look, I was a matter of time before the gangs figured it out. You groom somebody from a young age, you have them with no criminal record, you bring them on up legitimately, and then you use them to, funnel money and other stuff. He said, so this is like the algorithm. She said, yeah. He said, Brandon Johnson ain't a dope boy. She said, how do you know? He's been raised up this way. And now all of a sudden he won the lottery, got a new $75,000 food truck. He say, I'm wondering where he got the money, but he's not a dope boy. She say, there go that bleeding heart again. He flashes back in Kansas City, and he's walking into his precinct, sees a bullet in his mailbox on top of some papers. He takes the bullet off, and it says nigger lover. And so he's looking around. He know if he make a big fuss, everybody's going to say they didn't do it. So he knows that he's basically the odd man out. Meanwhile, at school, we see Emmett. He didn't track down that BMW. Then he sees this old R. Kelly looking dude walking up, and he like, hey, what's up? Nice ride. He said, oh, man, thanks, man. You a student here? And then Emmett said, yeah. He said, well, you short, but come out and run for track. I'm the coach. And pulls off. And Emmett like, ain't that about a bit? Meanwhile, we see Otis Perry meeting with Brandon, and Brandon telling him they made a mistake on the money, gave too much. And Otis Perry saying, look, raise your expectations. You can't be that slow. You can do better. I see you as a brand, a franchise. You need to think and have bigger dreams for yourself than somebody else can have for you. Now, what do you want to do? Do you think you can do this or what? And so Brandon is sitting there thinking about, he said, you turn me away or what? I mean, you need this help or what? And so Brandon is thinking, and then he basically stayed with him. Meanwhile, we see Brandon on the north side meeting this little honky-tonk man, and then he hears Gravy complaining that they ain't got no Schlitz malt liquor. And so next thing you know, they in there talking, and he tell him he got an investor in his business now, and he told him it's Otis Perry. He like, Doodah? You that crazy dude, Doodah, you better leave him alone. He like, Doodah, who is Doodah? He said, Otis Perry is Doodah. He a gangster. He ain't no joke. Don't mess with him. I seen him beat this one boy to death while we was playing basketball, and he went back to playing basketball like ain't nothing ever happened. You better leave that dude alone. And so that had Brandon thinking he been getting too many warnings. Meanwhile, we see Ronnie, and he's still working on that rust bucket. He trying to get it started, and it ain't working. And so he started thinking. He look at a little old picture of grandma with her legs out. He starts smiling and reminiscing, and then he give it one more crank, and then lo and behold, it start up. He happy. He banging on the steering wheel. He turn on the music. He tell her, Grandma, on Ethel, come on out, Grandma. And then she come on out, Grandma Ethel. And then she like, Ronnie, what you doing? He said, come on, this your jam. damn, Ethel, let's come on, let's talk, let's dance. And she say, all right then, I do a little. And then she come on out into the middle of the street. Then they start stepping in the Babe of Love right there next to his raggedy ride. And then they hug. I guess they feeling a little better about each other. Meanwhile, we see Detective Cruz back when he was in Kansas City, stressing, kicking the damn doors in the bathroom, and he's like really having a hard time dealing with something at the moment. And so he was looking in the mirror. Meanwhile, there was a press conference going on about the police and the shooting involved, and the lieutenant said, where's your partner? He said, I don't know. And so the press was asking questions about what happened and officer involved shooting, and then they were trying to answer it, and the lieutenant was giving the best answers he could, even though he really wasn't answering nothing. Cruz finally comes out the bathroom, stands next to his partner, when one of the reporters asked the lieutenant, they want to ask him a question and talk to him. And so Detective Cruz come up and he says, hey, my partner, he perceived a threat and he acted accordingly. Brown brothers and blue. And so now his partner felt better that he helped him and backed him up. But Cruz felt bad inside that he did that. And so he looking at Brandon and he thinking, man, I need to be on the side of right this time. And so he goes and calls Brandon, even though Detective Toussaint said don't do it because you give him a heads up. Meanwhile, we see Detective Toussaint in regular clothes, and all of a sudden this little knucklehead 21 Savage looking dude come out and sitting in front of her looking all mean and greasy. Then he say, how come you ain't put the money on my books, Mom? And she like, look, I tried and I'ma do it. He said, no, I need the money now to keep him up off of me. And she says, look, baby, I'm trying to do what you need to do, but I wasn't able to. He said, yeah, but you got to keep it on there or else. And she's saying, look, I thought I'd helped you when I killed such and such. He said, yeah, you killed a boss. You ain't just killed no regular old person. So now I got to pay for it. And then while they talking, some other dude walk in behind them. And so he kind of hush up and got his eye on old boy, and old boy got his eye on him. And so he look at dude one last time and he tell his mama, Mom, I need that money on them books. And she say, all right, baby, I'm going to get it for you. I'll take care of you. And so they take him away. 21 Savage, and she's sitting there looking frustrated because now we see where she is conflicted at. Meanwhile, we see Brandon come home and now he want to get out of the Otis Perry thing, and so he about to tell her, Jerrica, and then she says, look, I did it, I quit. And he like, what? And she says, yeah, I quit. I did like you said, I quit the job and everything. So he had to tell her that's great. And deep down inside, he like, oh, snap. And so she says, what's wrong? He say, nothing. That's good. I'm glad you find what you really enjoy now and you be able to do it. She like, really? And so she give him a hug, and then we can see she run off. And so now he's sitting there thinking like, damn, I guess I'm all in. And he looking at this little engagement ring. And so she say, what's wrong? He say, nothing. I'm just betting on us, betting on myself. And so it fade off that way. Looking back on that episode, it was pretty interesting to see how deep Brandon got with Otis Perry in such a short amount of time. He's pretty much screwed, and they can do whatever they want with him now, one way or the other, because he owes so much money that they can manipulate him however they want. And it was also interesting to see how Detective Toussaint, why she is trying to crack down so hard on the young black men, because her son is one of these knuckleheads out there making a mess. And so I guess maybe she got some type of guilt or want to try to save them or do something. So she got a couple issues going on as well. And also another thing, now that we know what's going on with the Jason Mitchell situation, it's something that I noticed already during the season, but I didn't look into it that much. But I noticed in season 1 it was a lot of kissing, couple sex scenes or whatever, and I noticed in this season that she barely kissed him, and there wasn't any sex scenes between them. And so now if you look at it, whenever they hug, she keeps her body away from him when she hug. Whenever they kiss, she like holds his head and then kisses him. He can't like kiss her. She holds his head while he's still and gives him a couple pecks and that's it. So it's interesting to see how that dynamic looks now that we know the reason why. And so that's interesting as well. I hope that the show is able to survive now that we know he won't be on season 3. I don't think they were prepared to write him off the show like they could have been if it would have happened while it was still in production, like what happened with Smollett and Empire. In the end, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I want to thank everybody that supports me at patreon.com, and especially my newest supporter, Chantel V. I really appreciate all your support. And everybody that subscribed, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace, and I'm out.